What's good, everybody? It's your girl Tati, and I'm back with another review of Dark Side of the Ring. And this week we are talking about Chris Kanyon. This episode, you guys, we already knew it was going to be pretty tough to watch, to see a grown man spiral out of control. It's just crazy. The episode starts talking about something that I knew they were going to mention, was that he was raised in a Catholic home. And I know firsthand that religion kind of tells you that if you're not how the Bible say you should be, then you're just wrong. You're living in sin. You're not good enough, and you live in guilt. So now imagine a little boy who's having feelings about other little boys. He feels guilty. He feels like he can't love himself for feeling in a way where he's being told that it's a sin, that it's wrong. So he had to hide this for sure. Like, I totally get why religion would play a big factor into why he had to almost hate himself, hate other gay people, and just feel like he had to hide who he was from everyone. And and that's what really started this downward spiral, that just became his life, where he felt like, imagine you're an adult where you feel like you are a man and you love another man, but you can't be with another man because that's socially unacceptable, from basically the whole world. And one of the first people to know that he was gay was James Mitchell. He was his manager. He had an, I don't want to say it's an issue, but for pro wrestling, it's an issue. Basically, he had the look. He was able to be so versatile in the ring. He was pretty good for a big dude. And unfortunately, as soon as he opened his mouth, it's like, okay, like it's something that the fans probably couldn't get behind. When you're building a character, if you don't have that total package where you can just go up there and do a promo, then a lot of times they just throw you with a manager. And with James being his manager, he was basically the mouthpiece for him. So he had a lisp, and he also had a strong New York accent. And I believe he's from Long Island. I'm from New York, so I know, like, people from Long Island probably got the strongest accents out of everyone in New York. So, him being so big and looking that part that, where people, when they hear you, they probably going to expect something, something big coming out of you, and you kind of sound like you're having issues enunciating words, or where maybe people can't even understand you. So it just didn't work. That was the case for when he was in WCW. He also did get some training with Moolah. Moolah, she had a whole episode of Dark Side of the Ring for herself too, for some controversial reasons. And he did get a chance to train with her, probably one of the only guys that ever trained with her. And he really wanted to make it big in pro wrestling. When he was a little kid, he'd be wrestling with other boys in the church, and that's what he wanted to be. James talked about a story that stuck out in particular. This was like a big moment because this was the first time that he actually came out to someone. So he went to Memphis to train. He was going to be there for quite some time, and he brought a U-Haul truck with his things, and he was going to move in somewhere. His cousins came along to help. And when they opened a U-Haul truck, things started flying out. And one of the things that was like right by the door when you open it was a big box. The box tumbled over, and it's a box of gay pornography. And he is freaking the fuck out, and his cousins are probably freaking the fuck out, like, what the fuck is this? And he doesn't really know what to do. It's obviously his stuff that he's bringing to his place. So what is he going to tell his cousins? That, what, that's my movies, I'm gay? Obviously, he feels like he can't do that. So he calls up James and he said, I gotta tell you something. I'm gay and I need you to help me out. Like, the box tumble over, there's gay pornography in it. I don't want them to think it's mine. Tell them it's yours. So he had James call them to let them know that he left the box over there that had some stuff in it, blah blah blah. Basically saying that, hey, that's my shit. Basically just to get him out of having a falling out with his family. I could kind of commend him on that one. That must have been pretty tough. You're hearing for the first time that someone that you've been close to is gay, and then all of a sudden now you got to take the rap for them for having gay porn. So him talking about Chris is so, I don't want to say weird, but it's like a couple that's in an abusive relationship. They love each other most of the time, but Chris physically abused him a lot. And throughout the whole thing, he's saying how amazing of a friend Chris was and everything. And that's when he didn't have those manic episodes where he was abusing him. He mentions when he completely destroyed his car because he's upset because his Mortis gimmick was just not working out, especially with the popularity of NWO. So now they're looking for, characters that fans can relate to, characters that feel more real. So, they don't want nothing really with masks, nothing that looks like it's from a video game or whatever. They just want to start over because NWO was just over as fuck at the time. And then Stone Cold Steve Austin too. Someone wasn't on their roster, but people related to that realism of someone like Austin. So his gimmick was just not working. And I guess they let him know that they were scrapping the whole thing and basically had to get back to the drawing board. Didn't really have nothing for him. He freaked out and they got into the car. The car wasn't starting and James kept trying to start it and it started starting. And as soon as they started driving, he kept elbowing James in the fucking face. And James is the one that's driving. He's just so upset. And James is taking elbow after elbow while he's on the road driving. And they come to a stop. He kicks the door, just kicks the door right open, comes out the car, and literally starts stomping on the car, breaking all the lights, just smashing all the windows. He just goes crazy. And he goes, if I didn't have this fucking lisp and accent, I wouldn't even need you. Like, you would be nobody to me. And he obviously felt some type of way. And then he's like, man, the only person in the world who know your secret, and this is how you treated me, when he's been nothing but a good friend to him. And I guess that was one of the first few times when he realized that Chris is going through something. And he mentioned several times where literally Chris is just choking the shit out of him, beating him up, punching him. And it almost seemed like he's just saying that he took it, And one time where he actually hid a gun under the pillow because he said he started looking up causes for self-defense and things like that. So he got a gun and he kept it in the under a pillow so that if he ever got that way again, after the last time that he had choked him, he was like, you know what, he might even kill me. So he got a gun just so if something were to happen, he could be able to defend himself. And I think that is just crazy as hell for you to be kikiing with your friends and you have a gun just to defend yourself against them in case something were to happen. That is crazy. He knew his friend was going through something, and if it came down to it, him or Kanyon, he was just gonna have to shoot him if that's what it took to get him to stop what he was doing. Once he got to the WWE, he started making money. He was a champion in less than 2 months or so from being there, and he was making a lot of money compared to being in WCW. And with that money, he got a house. It was like a party house. People came over to party, and he would have parties like very often. He turned his house, inside of the house, a beach, like literally with sand and all this shit that was probably impossible to clean up when he had to sell the damn house. And to him, I think he figured that if he came off the real cool dude, the dude who's always throwing the parties and everybody liked to hang out with, then people wouldn't probably suspect that he was gay. So he had parties where women will literally be flocking to him. They obviously, he's a celebrity, he has money, and these women wanted to sleep with him. And he paid them no mind whenever they were around. And one day, one of the girls came up to James and said, "Hey, I think your friend is gay. Like, he just don't seem interested in women at all." So James go and tell Chris. Chris just loses his mind because now he's actually hearing for once that someone actually thinks he's gay. Whereas he's always paranoid about people thinking that he's gay. But now he hears someone saying it. So he told James, "We got to do something so no one could ever say that again." His idea was to make porn, basically make a sex tape with him and a woman. When everybody sees that he's banging some chick, nobody will even think he's gay. And you know what, I think that was kind of stupid, because if nobody's even thinking about it to begin with, then what's the point, right? So he buys everything that he needs, have James set everything up at the hotel. He tells him to find some bitch that he can fuck, and he's supposed to show up at the hotel at a certain time, and he doesn't even show up. That whole night they stayed waiting for him. The next day he comes to the hotel. James actually filmed her with the mortis mask on, and I guess she's probably doing some freaky shit or whatever, and he's playing the video for him. And at first he didn't really have a reaction. Then he started reacting to it like he's pissed off, and he starts yelling at James, and at some point he punches him in the chest. He said he punched him with both of his fists on the chest, and he fell onto the bed, and he was like, "You know what? He might even kill me today." So he reached under the pillow and pulled out the gun, and the gun didn't even really faze Chris. Chris still approached him while he had the gun in his face. Like, that's how you know someone is not in the right frame of mind. Like, you're really gonna approach someone with a gun to your face. You get up and close with them like as if you're not even scared to begin with. And you know, I think that's when things really just spiraled out of control. You know, you have your friend, you have to have a gun to protect yourself from your friend. That's crazy. He obviously isn't making it that well in WWE. They end up letting him go, but still he's having issues within himself. He's getting more and more depressed, and James even talked about him having this box where he would type up maybe like gay encounters that he's had, or he's basically typing about his feelings, and then he'll put it in this like steel like type block box, and he'll put it in there and close it. And James was like, he just didn't understand why you're trying to hide something about yourself, but then you're writing everything about yourself. If somebody finds this, then you know all your secrets will be out there. But I guess that was a way for him to kind of speak out his thoughts, put his thoughts out there, since he felt like it was, you know, deep inside him where he couldn't express himself. So him typing those letters and putting it in the box is almost therapeutic for him. Maybe he's had some major issues, and later on he gets diagnosed with manic depression, and manic depression is now called bipolar disorder. So people with bipolar disorder, sometimes they don't even know when they have an episode. So I think I don't want to say it was an excuse, but maybe it's a little bit easier for James to speak about his experiences with Chris, because he know that when Chris became violent with him, that kind of wasn't really Chris, you know, and it becomes a little bit easier to tell. They also had the Young Bucks, Brian Cage, Luke Hawk. These guys were trained by Kanyon, and they were also really good friends. And they saw him at his worst as well. You know, they were really young, just trying to get their feet into the door. And someone that they idolize was actually someone who was going through issues too. And going through those type of episodes with him where he would be hallucinating or just totally out of it, I'm sure it was scary for them too, because they probably didn't even know how to deal with it. They Young Bucks was just like teenagers when they met him, and obviously they're too young to really understand what exactly is going on and how to be able to help their friend. What really disappointed me was, he kept feeling like people in WWE knew. They brought him back one time, and I can't remember what was going on around this time, but it was like maybe for like 3 weeks or so, like there would be a big box in the ring. And I remember one of the weeks was actually like a little cute puppy. When the Undertaker opened the box, it was a puppy. So one of these weeks was Kanyon in the box. So when he opened it, he's singing a song by Boy George called "Do You Really Want to Love Me?" And Boy George is is a openly gay singer from the 80s. And the song is kind of like a gay anthem in a way. So he felt like they knew, and Undertaker like whooped his ass real bad. Probably gave one of the worst chair shots ever in pro wrestling, and it was just humiliating to watch. It was uncomfortable to watch, and obviously uncomfortable for him to go through. And I believe that wasn't the last time. He did have a couple of matches here and there after that, but they ultimately let him go. He ended up coming out at an indie show with a match against DDP, and I guess people were, I don't want to say okay, but maybe they just didn't care. And maybe he felt like it probably wasn't a big deal. He wanted to be role models for other children who are gay and struggling. He even approached Stephanie McMahon about that after Orlando Jordan had came in, and they wanted him to be like an openly gay wrestler, and he wanted to be the one to be that role model. So he wrote a whole letter to Stephanie, and Stephanie never even she did reply and say that she was going to get back to him about that like it wasn't her call to be able to make that type of decision, and she never got back to him on that. So now here comes to where things get crazy. He started like appearing on the Howard Stern show, I think like regularly or something. He was on there quite a few times. So Howard Stern do be like instigating situations and stuff like that. I'm not, for the drama, obviously, for views. And John Cena did come on the show once where they were interviewing him, and he basically just said that Kanyon wasn't good enough, because he stated that WWE let him go because he was gay, and John Cena didn't agree with that. And I already see people online talking about John Cena would never say something like that. That was WWE who told him to go over there and say that. You already know those little Jimmies who's crying on Twitter right now really want to make sure that John Cena's image is not, tainted by this whole thing, even though this happened a long time ago and everybody know about it. And, they just don't want him to go through what Ric Flair went through last week. And speaking of Ric Flair, he also had comments as well, basically confirming what John Cena had said, saying that he wasn't really good. And maybe Rick knew this, but he idolized Rick. Chris really idolized Rick. So to hear him say that he wasn't good, to hear him come on the show and basically volunteered to speak on the behalf of WWE, it really wasn't his duty to just come over there and just be like, well, I'm just going to defend WWE. There's no way you're going to sit here and talk shit about them. He shouldn't have said anything. And he actually did, I think maybe tweeted or something on Instagram talking about how he shouldn't have said what he said, basically making comments right before the show aired because he knew people were going to be talking about him again. He should have never said anything at all. People don't realize that having saying your opinions might hurt somebody. Like it really does. And especially someone you really look up to, that could have drove him even closer to committing, suicide. And he ultimately did. There were some times where he did reach out. He did reach out to the Young Bucks about being depressed and about to kill himself. He spoke to James one ride. The last time that James saw him, he was like, they were arguing before they got into the car, and on the way to the airport, for like 45 minutes an hour, they're reminiscing on their good times. And when he gets to the airport, he just like a gut feeling like, damn, I think that's like the last time I'm going to see him. When someone is like feeling like shit and all they can do is just talk about some good times, he just felt like he was probably going to take his life. And ultimately he did. They tried contacting him for a couple of weeks. No one ever was able to hear from him. And he ends up overdosing on antidepressants in his childhood home. I mean, this is just really, really disgusting that he felt like he just couldn't live his life because he was so he was so like just thinking about how other people would view him. And when he came out to some of his friends, no one hated him. They still loved him. They still were friends. Nothing. And maybe he felt like, man, I shouldn't have kept this secret for so long, because it probably wasn't that bad. Like, my friends are still my friends. And unfortunately he took his life. And it's like, maybe he could have kept that secret amongst close friends, or try not to get it out there until he felt mentally ready to be able to handle the whole world knowing about it. But it was just something he could not handle, and unfortunately he took his life. And he was a great wrestler. Fuck what John Cena said. Fuck what Ric Flair said. Too bad nobody's gonna hand you over 16 titles and call you one of the best wrestlers. He said he was just like, what, a tall dude in tights or something like that. Like, dude, like, I don't understand. Like, how John Cena took it was like, and Rick too, like it was something personal because he had his opinions on WWE. And quite frankly, they probably knew he was gay. And if that was his feelings, he can say that. But for you to just, you're not even coming up with your feelings or whatever. You're just flat out saying that this person wasn't even good enough to begin with. That is just crazy to me. What I got from this is, WWE, they're not innocent. Every episode you see is just a little bit more of who or what this company really is. And a lot of times you see that a lot of personal feelings just get in the way. Did they know he was gay? I think at some point they knew before he even came out. At some point, maybe he was paranoid about it the first few years, but after a while it definitely seems like they knew. You guys, if you know someone who's going through something, like, talk to them, tell them that there's resources out there. He probably felt like he could have had all the friends in the world, all the fans in the world, and he still felt lonely, and that he couldn't do anything to escape his problems. And nowadays there's a lot of resources for people who are going through something that may need help. And if you're not sure what to do for yourself or for someone else, reach out to someone, because it's better to get help than to take your life away and cut it off short. You just never know what someone can say to hurt you, and you also never know what someone can say to save your life. Thanks for watching, guys.